Okay, so those of y'all that have been following me for a really long time know more about me than some of the people that haven't. And y'all know that I really hate making videos, but this was way too much to type out, even though I'm a better writer than I am a speaker. And I just wanted to address a couple of things. First of all, in regards to the post yesterday where I posted a picture and I included song lyrics from a song that I love. I love the song. I adore the song. It's probably one of the only songs I listen to from Miss Taylor. As a writer and someone who appreciates art and all that it includes, not just in traditional art forms, but I believe art comes in all things. Tattoos, designer purses to me are a form of art. Artwork on your nails is, clothing, fashion, all that's art to me. As someone who loves poetry and music, I believe lyrics are just the great combination of the two. And I listen to music not so much for the beat or the style, but for the lyrics. They have to mean something to me. Now, don't get me wrong, I got some songs that, they're just cute songs and they're fun to listen to, especially with my teen daughter, and, we dance and joke around and stuff like that. But if I'm by myself or, I'm singing in the shower, it's probably a song that, has some significant meaning to me, or I can relate to, or the lyrics hit me in a certain way, even if I can't directly relate to them. So with that being said, and the fact that I write, even amateur and academically, I feel that you don't edit what the original author wrote, unless it is, for an academic paper and you are condensing it or whatever in that sense. But when you're quoting something, and I quoted it in the stanza form, I didn't add the writers to it. It's an Instagram caption, people, come on. When you're quoting something, I believe you leave it in the truest form. With that being said, there was a word in there, which this one particular word appears 8 times in the song, is a sensitive word to some people. And I quoted it, never thinking anything of it. My heart's way too hard to manage. I can't give a guy my trust. You said you're working to change it, so just bear with me. That part of the song is relatable to me. I get called out on it by someone, and I come back from not an emotional standpoint on my part. For those that don't know me, I've spent the better part of my life in some type of educational institution, either furthering my career or helping others. I have 3 degrees. Not that it makes me smarter or better, because I get that all the time, but I do have 3 degrees. 2-year degree and Associates of Liberal Arts. I have a Bachelor's of Science in History with a minor in Poli-Sci, Anthropology, and Interdisciplinary Studies. And then I have a Master's of Education with a focus on secondary education and research. So that's how I look at things. I look at things from a historian point of view. I look at things from a writer. I write, for academic articles. I write op-ed pieces for small online blogs and different things like that. So I look at it from that way. When this came about, my argument was the reason why he said that I couldn't use the word, even though I was reciting a lyric, is because it wasn't part of my ancestry. So that kind of hit a nerve. I'm not going to say that it didn't. Given the fact that I've spent the better part of my life advocating for underprivileged, underserved people of color, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, basically any right other than, you know, the white man's right, especially with being a female in the South from a male Southern-minded, Southern Baptist dominated family. In fact, I mentioned this in the post because of my stance on my beliefs and the way that I believe. It has been an issue with my family since I was probably about 10 years old. You're raised by people, parents that think that they aren't racist, but then ask you certain questions that kind of borders on that. And their parent, my father in particular, their father is blatantly racist, but doesn't think anything about it because that's just the way he was brought up. Which is a side note, which is hilarious for me because my grandparents, my dad's parents, his dad, especially my grandfather, was a sharecropper. Like, I have picked, they were in their best, him and his brother were in their best overalls, barefoot, dirty. I mean, they lived in a sharecropping house. That's what they were. And so I really don't think that they're any better than anybody else just because of the color of their skin. And yet, even though they were like the lowest of the low, in his mind, he still kind of thought that he was. With that being said, though, I loved my grandfather. I knew what my grandfather was. My grandfather knew what I was. He never threw it in my face. I never threw it in his face. And until the day he died, him and my grandmother are the only two people that I can honestly say, you know, were like real parents to me and loved me unconditionally, didn't hold anything that I did against me. So, I think it's important that you know that, you know, that's my background, a little bit of it. That's the environment that I grew up in, and I'm the only one that came out with like total opposite opinions. It's June. I was asked to speak at the last before to give a speech from someone who had a biracial child and had been in an interracial relationship, that lived in the community that was having issues, and to give my perspective on it from a historical and as an educator in the community, and just as a mother and partner, or, you know, who had been in those situations. Now, when I say interracial relationship, everyone automatically jumps to the fact that I am only with black men, and that is not the case. In fact, that is so far from the case that you would be shocked. Growing up, I only dated white men, and not because that's, you know, what was mandated. Y'all, I live in Texas. I live in East Texas, Northeast Texas. And it's still very much, you know, racist per se here. The town that I went to school in, which now I teach in, and my daughter goes to school in, is predominantly white. And when I mean predominantly white, like, there was one black male and two black females in my graduating class, and that was it in the school district. There was no younger siblings, there was nothing, there was just those three. So, I mean, when we've had KKK in the middle of broad daylight rally on a corner, you know, to keep their town great, it wasn't a lack of hiding or not choosing to. There was no one there in that town for me to date. But up until the time I was about 17 and I was kicked out of my parents' house, I graduated from high school a year early because of my views. You take that. So about the time I was 17, I'd only ever dated white guys because that's all I'd ever been around. So going back to the fact that, you know, everyone's like, oh, you're in an interracial relationship. The only reason why you're doing this is because, you know, you have a black and white daughter. Well, I don't. the term interracial means anyone that is not of your race. I'm Anglo-Saxon. I'm white, Caucasian, from European descent, German, Irish, English, French. So my daughter's father is Mexican American, or the colloquial term, the slang Chicano. He is second generation on his mother's side and third generation on his father's side. His grandparents came here for a better life for their children and their children's children. So when I say interracial relationship, that does not always mean black and white. And I think that's a big misconception in our society. Like, oh, you're not in an interracial relationship because you're not with a black person. No, I'm with someone that is not of my race. If I was with an Asian, I would be in an interracial relationship. If I was with a black man and not white, I would be in an interracial relationship. Okay, so that's important. My daughter is Hispanic and white. She does not look white. She looks like me, but she does not look white at all. That's what I mean by biracial children and interracial relationship. So I have had people, including my own parents, be like, you wouldn't have a leg to stand on, you wouldn't care about any of this stuff if you weren't, sleeping with black men and Mexican men. And I'm making that nicer than how they said it, but anyway. And that's not true. I was not with, well, let me put it this way. I've been with one black man. It's been recently. It's like within the last 2 or 3 years. So, it's like, not that I have a problem with him, but like I said, there are none that have ever approached me where I live that stimulated me enough to want to date them, because I'm not dating someone on the color of their skin. I'm dating them on their personality. I'm dating them on what attracts me. I'm a country girl. If you don't like animals and you don't like living out in the country and you don't like, to go country and western dancing or horses or fishing or any of that stuff, probably not going to look your direction. It doesn't matter what color you are. Those are just things that I notice. I mean, I will notice a guy in a pair of cowboy boots before I notice a guy in a pair of Chuck Taylors, or it's just not something that, grabs my attention right away. Boots and starched jeans will have my attention right away because that's what I'm partial to. So with that being said, going back to the original issue at hand, the word that was used, I don't think that I have the right to say it because of who I sleep with, or whose children I have, or because I speak up for Black Lives Matter, or I speak up for racial injustice, or any of that. I don't use the word. In fact, my daughter and her best friend, him and her have been best friends since 2nd grade. He is black, and of course she is biracial, Hispanic and white, and they call each other that word, and I smack her every time she says it. I'm like, don't say that word, I don't like it in that context. And he's like, no, that's what I tell her to call me. And I'm like, I don't care what you tell her to call you, T. Yeah, she's not calling you that. Just like you're not gonna call her, Chica. That's something, her cousins call her, but you're not, you can't call her that. So I think that's important for me to say. Like, for me, it's important for me to say. So going back to the quoting the song lyric, the reason why the song lyric was quoted and they used that word without editing it is because I don't want someone to edit something that I wrote. Like, I want you to take it for the context that it was written in. So if I write something and I use a word, whether you agree with it or not, but that stanza or phrase or whatever moved you enough to repost it or appreciate it, I want you to keep it in the context that it was written, as someone who appreciates art. And so herein lies the problem. If if certain people of a certain ethnicity and certain culture don't want other ethnicities and cultures to use a certain word, then do you label your music only for these people? Because I'm going to tell you right now, when I'm in the car and I'm singing, and I could have NWA on, I'm going to sing the lyrics for most part. It's just, you know, I mean, that's just what I'm going to do. I'm not going to walk up to somebody on the street saying it, but just like I would expect, you know, some of my friends that are in the Black Cowboy Association and Trail Riders Association that aren't white singing Luke Combs, you know, or George Strait. I'm all like, hey, you know, that's partial to mine. You don't use those words. It's a song. You appreciate it for what it is. So, in my opinion, appreciating the author and respecting what they wrote, the writers wrote, and there were 3 of them on the song, I reposted it. And Lord of mercy, you would have thought I started World War III. So, I'm freaking out, like, because this is not me. This is not my personality. This is not something I want. You know, I don't want to be seen that way. You know, I understand that sometimes we come off that way, even though we don't intend to be, and that wasn't the case. And so I start calling on my friends, and both my Hispanic friends, my black friends, my white friends. I'm like, y'all, am I wrong? And I called people from all different, you know, walks of life, people from, you know, the university, people in my alumni, people that, you know, some of my friends are high school dropouts. Called them. I'm like, what do you think about this? And am I wrong? And one of my dearest friends, Tay, which is the one black guy that I graduated with, in fact, I posted that he was featured in an article in Texas Monthly. He lives in Austin now, and he has been protesting every day since the Black Lives Matter rally started. And I called him and I'm like, look, this is what this is, and am I wrong? And he said, I'm not wrong, but I'm not right. And I can respect that. I can. I preach that you have to be willing to adjust your way of thinking and learn every day. And so you take yourself out of situations emotionally, and you look at them, you try to look at them from other people's point of view. And I wanted to do that. And he said, I get it. He goes, but some people aren't. He said, because it's too emotionally attached. And I said, okay, I get that. I do. And he's like, but I wouldn't apologize for it. He goes, because anybody that knows you knows that you didn't do it in a malicious intent, and should know that you didn't use the word because you thought you had the right to use the word, that you were appreciative of a song and a lyric, and you quoted it. He goes, I feel like it would be no different than you're appreciative of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and you have posters of them in your history classroom. I said, I do. Just like I have posters of Mahatma Gandhi and Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria, you know, substantial historical figures that I admire from all walks of life. And he goes, yeah. He goes, so, well, in your eyes, you felt that you were honoring those lyrics the way you honor those people. He goes, but some people aren't going to get that. I said, okay, I understand. So then, fast forward a couple hours, and I get a text from another individual that I'm close with, or have been close with, and just like, I'm not going to say flipping out, but it felt like they were on me, and like, you can't even quote it. I can't quote it. Yeah, I understand you, but you can't quote it. Okay. Respectfully agree to disagree, but because I respect you, I will edit it. So I did. And I'll refrain from trying to use that in any joke, meme I find on the internet, any reposting of a comedian that uses the word, any song lyric. And that's not me being facetious, that's not me being a smartass, that's just me like, okay, if it's that big a deal to you and I care about, you know, our relationship or friendship or, you know, whatever, you know, I will do better. I will compromise. I don't believe that I did wrong, but I'll compromise. And that leads me to, if y'all haven't figured out, I'm kind of a radical, which is really bad if you live in a red state, especially Texas. And I believe, my belief is that equity and equality are not the same thing. A lot of people use them interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. Equity means everybody has the same thing at the same level. Equality means everybody just has the same thing. So, or access to the same thing. I believe that as a society, we should not strive for just equality, but equity. And this is why. Equality gave you segregation. Y'all both had water fountains. Okay? Y'all both had bathrooms. Y'all both had restaurants. Both had colleges. Both had public schools. Right? But they weren't the same, were they? They were not equal to the other. Right? We can all agree on that? Okay, that's equality. Y'all got the same thing. Blacks got the same things as the whites. Hispanics got the same thing as the whites. But they weren't the same. We did the bare minimum. That's equality. Equality is the bare minimum. We want to go above the bare minimum. We want equity. Equity is when we integrated. Okay? Blacks and Mexicans could now go to privileged white schools and universities and have access to the same textbooks that were newer than the 30-year-old textbooks they were using. Y'all were both getting education, but you weren't getting the same type of education, and that's important. Fast forward to today, and the reason why I speak on matters like this, not just for minorities, people of color, including Hispanics and indigenous people and blacks and Asians and Middle Easterns, and I speak on the right to freedom of religions, and I speak on the right to LGBTQ, and I speak on women's rights, and I advocate for all those things, and I even advocate, no matter what color you are, for the underprivileged, because I work in a district, I grew up in a district that even though it is predominantly white, it is very underserved. It is a school district in one of the poorest counties in the state of Texas. Some of our students don't have electricity and running water. They come to food lines every weekend or every Friday afternoon and get a backpack of food to go home to make sure that they have food for the weekend. This isn't in an inner city school. This is in a rural community. And I work and speak on their behalf too. Not because of the color of their skin, but because they're underserved economically. They're economically and socially disadvantaged. Okay? They have a public school, and it's equal because they can go to school and get a public education just like students who live in predominantly wealthier areas like Highland Park and Allen and Plano, but they're not getting an equitable education because those students in those bigger school districts that have more wealth to them, they get the better laptops, they have MacBooks and iPads, and they get the best speakers and they get the best teachers because they can afford to pay for them. And the students in the public education system in these smaller rural communities are getting an equal education because they are afforded the right to have public transportation and to go to a public school, but they're learning on 7-year-old Chromebooks that half of them don't work, that lag behind, that they can only use when they're in school because 50% of them do not have access to internet in their homes, and are using actual textbooks for health that I know for a fact I used in health, and I've been out of school for almost 20 years. Because my daughter brought one home, and one of my former classmates had, when you signed them out, their name was in it. That's how old the textbook is. So we've reached a point to where we have equality still today, but we don't have equity, and equity is important across the board. So I know some of you are like, dang, she started on song lyrics and she's rambling. No, because it comes down to this point right here, the point that I'm trying to make, the point that I stand on. It doesn't matter, to me, the color of your skin. Disadvantaged is disadvantaged, okay? I am a firm believer that you cannot be colorblind. Let's just get that straight, all right? Everyone was like, oh, I teach my kids to be colorblind. Well, you're a moron, because your kids are not colorblind, okay? Even if you are colorblind, a person who is genetically diagnosed as colorblind 100%, they still see black and white, and therein lies the problem. They see two different colors, okay? They're not monochromatic. Not everything is all black, not everything's all white, okay? Gray, whatever, all right? So you can't teach your kids to be colorblind, because it's going to end up being an issue later on and in other areas, and it's still going to make them racist to a sense. And let me explain to you why. When you teach your kids to be colorblind and not see color, they actually don't see color, and then they become impervious to the disadvantages or the wrongs that are done to their friends of color, okay? And once I pointed this out to someone that was a lifelong friend of my daughter's father, he was like, I never saw it that way. And he's like, come to think of it, I never noticed those things. No, because you become numb to it, all right? So the idea of teaching people to be colorblind and God doesn't see color, if God didn't see color, do you think the sky would be blue and the trees green in the summer? Right. Okay. And if you don't believe in God and you believe in whatever else, do you think you would see those colors, okay? I mean, let's just be realistic. So we can't teach people to not see color. What you can teach your children and those around you to do is to see color and learn to be accepting and understanding of those colors. Okay? So once you learn to be accepting and understanding of those colors, not culturally appropriate, but to learn them, to appreciate them, to respect them, to enjoy them. I live in Texas, okay? It used to be Mexico. It's no longer Mexico. It is part of the United States, all right? But let me tell you something. You can't throw a rock in this state and not hit a Tex-Mex or a Mexican restaurant. That's not cultural appropriation. Well, for some it is. But for the most part, it's not. That's accepting of a culture and their food, okay? Italians aren't the only ones going into the Italian restaurant, okay? Asians are not the only ones going into the Asian buffet. If you can be culturally accepting of their food, then you need to see their color and be culturally accepting of their heritage and their background and their ethnicity. So when I say that I don't believe in being colorblind, I absolutely do not believe in being colorblind. I believe in seeing the color, learning about those ethnicities and races and cultures, and being accepting of it, okay? And when you're accepting of that and you learn about those, when incidences like yesterday come up, you take what people from those groups say, you digest it without becoming defensive, and you adjust. Doesn't mean you have to agree, but you adjust. That's compromise. Compromise is both parties get something, but it's not necessarily what they both want. It's a little bit of both. You win a little bit and you lose a little bit. That's compromise, okay? So when you do that, you are able to move forward towards equity. Now, to get to equity, I'm gonna say things and it's gonna come off like, what the hell did she just say? Stop, digest it, and think about what I'm saying. Okay, let's go back. Equality means the same thing. Equity means the same thing, but equal for everybody, right? Okay. If you want equity, you want everyone to be treated the same, you cannot have more than one flag. You cannot have more than one national anthem. You cannot have more than one bathroom. You cannot have more than one water fountain. You can't have separate entrances and exits to restaurants. You can't have separate sitting sections on a bus. You cannot have language and terms that are acceptable by certain people of that society to use, but not others. And follow me on this when I say why. I understand why the terminology and why certain things came about. Okay? I understand why there are historically black colleges. I understand why certain terms were used to help build an idea of cultural identity, because identities were stripped from them. I understand taking something that was used to oppress you and making it into something that's a term of endearment. I get it. But, yes, I'm going to say but. If you can have that, and you want others to be understanding of that, then we're going to have to just stay at equality. But all those crazy nut jobs running around in the South going, the Confederate flag is part of my heritage, you're going to have to be accepting of that. Because just because you don't understand the definition of it for them doesn't mean that they can't have it. Just because some people do not understand the definition of that word and why it's used, it's kind of the same thing. Now, before y'all start blowing up my timeline again and being like, no, it's not, one's racist and the other isn't. Okay. The flag was never originally racist. It was for a country that fell. The flag that they use as a battle flag, it's not actually the actual even Confederate States flag. They had, like, off the top of my head, 3. Johnny Rebel is the flag that is the most identifiable. It was used by the naval ships, and it was the Tennessee battle flag, and that's where most of the battles were fought, just a side note. So, do I agree with the flag? No, I don't. I don't agree with it, because I don't believe that you should be flying a flag from a nation that fell, number one, if you're a true patriot. Number 2, I don't believe that you should support anything that has been taken up by a group of people who use it in a fashion that is demeaning, racist, incriminating, intimidating, any of the above. I don't think you should do that. They could take in the smiley face for all I care, and if they used it for their hate organization, I'd be like, anti-smiley face, don't use it. Don't use it in an emoji. I don't care what it originally meant. It means this now. What I'm saying is, if you want equality, what you do for one, you have to do for the other. You don't get to pick and choose. Just like a couple years back, a university here in the state of Texas, Texas Women's University, who is known to be a nursing school, and it's one of the best nursing schools in the state and in the country, actually. And women were what could go. And it made it to the Supreme Court because a male petitioned that he should have the right to go to this school and not be denied a number 1 nursing school because he was a male and not a female. And it came down that he won his case, because you can't have a school just for one person if we're trying to build a country on equity and the same for everyone. Now, he could have went and had someone start a university just for males for nursing, and you're still equal, but you're not equitable, and that's what we need to strive to be. So the Supreme Court ruled in his favor, and he was allowed to go there, and now men are allowed to go to Texas Women's University. A lot of them don't, because they don't want Texas Women's University on their degree, but if they want to get hired at a high income patient taking hospital, they might, because like I said, it's one of the best universities for nursing. So fast forward, I talked a little bit, like, I understand historically the reason why historically black colleges were created, because I say you because it's a bad habit, sorry, because black individuals were not allowed to go to public universities because they were not white. Neither were Hispanics, but that's another issue. But anyways, historically black colleges were created so that African American individuals could go and get higher education, and not be denied that because of their skin color. With that being said, if I were to find out that what my daughter wanted to do had a degree plan at a historically black college that would be more beneficial for her in a certain industry, I'm gonna sign her up for it, because I believe in equity, not equality. See, you have black colleges and white colleges. See, we're still being segregated. If you want everything to join together, then you're gonna have to open, okay? And I'm not negating the fact of history. I understand the fact of history. What I'm saying is, to move forward, to better our country, to better our society, to better our children's society, we're going to have to put the notion of equality aside, and we're going to have to reach for equity. Now, do I think that this is attainable? Not in my lifetime. Maybe not even in my children's lifetime. Do I want it to be attainable? Yes, absolutely. Because I want the same for everybody, not just white people, not just white men, not just, whatever, everybody deserves the same. Which brings me to my final point. The Constitution of the United States has 27 amendments. Anything that's amended that much, maybe we need to look at. But we amended it to try to make things right, and it's still not working. So let's look at it. The Constitution is not giving everyone equity, okay? Freedom of religion apparently only means freedom of religion if you choose a Protestant or Christianity-based faith religion, okay? That's not freedom of religion. I didn't read the asterisk with the side note or the footnote that says that. It doesn't. If you find it, please tell me. But I've looked over the original document several times as during my stint of getting my degree, and it's in my classroom, and it doesn't say that. Okay, equal men does not mean equal women. Okay, it needs to say equal humans. So we need to fix that. I'm a firm believer, if it's not working, chunk it. Let's start over. Let's do something for our society now. The society that we have, the society, not the baby boomers, not the older generations that are still stuck in their ways, but for Zennials, like myself, the cross between Generation X and Millennials, and some of the Generation Xers and the Millennials, and my daughter's generation, the Gen Zers. Let's do something for them. Let's make a country that they can coexist in, like they've learned to coexist in already. Because I can tell you right now, my daughter sees color. She can tell you what color everybody is. She can tell you about their backgrounds and their cultural identities, and ethnicities, and how their households are supposed to work in different environments, and she's cool with it. It's like no big deal. It's just like, yeah, I read this book and, you know, this, or I watched this movie and this, and, you know, that's how she talks about her friends' households. She's understanding of how you're supposed to act in certain places, you know, around certain people. So that's what we need to reach. That's my goal. That's where I stand. You know, I want freedom of religion for all, not just for me. You know, I mean, I may be Christian, but I got some friends that are Jews. I don't send them a Christmas card that says Merry Christmas. They don't celebrate it. They celebrate Hanukkah, okay? I have 2 friends that are Hindu. Don't send them a Merry Christmas card. Send them a holiday card. But I don't gotta cram my religion down their throat, okay? I don't have to go to an organized institution to believe in God. I can read the Bible myself. And I don't have to vote red or blue. I can have my own opinions. I think the 2-party system needs to go out the window, okay? I believe a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and, you know, and throw some hot sauce in it and shake it up with some rice, and I'll eat it with chopsticks. I mean, this is how I am. I know it sounds like I'm rambling all because of a word, but I need y'all, I needed to do this for myself, to let y'all know that well, you can call me racist if you want. I know I'm not, alright? I need y'all to know where I stand on everything, to understand where I'm coming from when I do certain things. Which I'm not even at all political on this page like I am on my blogs and Facebook and my private Instagram page where I share pictures of my family, or my children and friends and stuff like that. So, you can take me or you can leave me, okay? I'm not trying to be offensive. This is my belief. I'm not asking for you to try to convince me of your belief. I'm not trying to convince you of my belief. What I'm saying is, if we're moving forward as a society, and the things that I fight for equity. The same thing for everyone on the same level. That means if we have to have 2 national anthems because they're not representative of everyone in society, we chunk those. We get together with some musicians like some John Legend and Lady Gaga and George Strait and name them, okay? From every genre, we get somebody together and we write a new one for our country that's representative of our children and the society that we are becoming, okay? The society that we should be, an equitable society. A society that believes in giving the same thing to everyone at the same level, okay? Not just the bare minimum, all right? We need to do better than the bare minimum, okay? Other countries can do it. I've seen it firsthand. I've been to those countries and witnessed it firsthand. I've been to countries and providences that have far less than we have in the United States, and they do better jobs of accepting those and their circumstances than we do here, and we have everything at our fingertips. We have information. You carry it around in your hand, and you accept the first thing that you read in a meme. Come on, guys, do your research. Wikipedia is not a source. I can go in there and make a Wikipedia page right now. It doesn't mean that it's true. I could go in there right now and make a Wikipedia page that says that the sky's not really blue, it's just the reflection off the ocean and the sky's really green, okay? And some nut job's gonna believe me because it's on Wikipedia. No, that's not why it's blue, okay? Alright? I mean, the sky's not green. Come on, guys. You want better for yourself and your children, then all of us have to stop worrying about words and different things. We have to take our past, we have to appreciate that past, and we learn from it and we make it better. And we don't just make it better by being equal, which I believe is the bare minimum. We make it better by making it equitable, and that is equitable not just for every color, but that's equitable for every religion, that's equitable for every gender, that's equitable for every relationship status, that's equitable for every economic status, that's equitable for everybody in society, not just based off of color, but based off everything, because you take color out of it and it's going to be something else. The society has a need to put down somebody to make themselves feel better, and we need to do better than that. So to go back to the original thing, I apologize if my restating of a lyric that I appreciate, and appreciate the authors that wrote it, there were 3 writers for that song, offended. It was not the original intent. And while I do not feel that it was wrong to post it in the context that it was posted in, I heard both sides. Those that supported me and said, it's not a big deal, I don't know why everyone's so bent over it. And then those that said, hey, it probably would be best if you didn't use it. And I compromised. I took it down. And I will be more conscious going forward, because I understand that we as a society are not yet at that equitable level, even no matter how much I want us to be. We're still at the bare minimum, and it's kind of sad, but that's where we are, and we're only going to be able to move forward for people who listen and respect those that have talked to each other, and you talk to each other with respect, and you don't yell, and you don't name call, and you don't throw, you don't talk down to someone, and don't start personally attacking them, and you learn from it. And yesterday was a valuable lesson for me, and a learning experience, and I think you learn something every day, no matter how old you are. If you stayed for all that, I'm sorry it's a really long video. Y'all have a good Saturday, and maybe I'll post another video later if y'all want, not as long. If you send me some questions, I'll answer them and post them, or I might even go live if that's something that y'all are interested in. Bye.